Okay, hey, Celsius creditors, do me a favor, give me a quick 100% or something if you can hear me okay. Azad, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Okay, we're going to be going live very shortly. Do me a favor, if you have received your distribution from either PayPal or Coinbase, then go to the purple pill in the bottom right and put FU Majinsky to let the world know. FU Majinsky, and if you feel like it, let them know what percentage you got, whether you got some Bitcoin, whether you got some ETH, whether something was missing, whether something went wrong. We're going to try and cover as many questions as we can. I'll give a few updates. But if you have received your funds from either PayPal, Venmo, or Coinbase, put in the bottom right, FU Majinsky. Okay, we're going to be getting started soon. Right. Okay, so just wanted to give a few general updates. If you haven't seen, actually, let me put on the top here. I'm just going to put some links in the top for everybody, and then I'll get started. Okay, cool. So this is my first hosted Twitter space for 2024. If you weren't around, a bunch of people have joined. I guess you've all been asleep for the last year and a half. But there was a shit ton of work that was done by creditors in the meantime, if you're waking up for the first time now. And those very same creditors, shout out to everybody that's been supporting the community, because we haven't heard much from the UCC, have we? We haven't heard much from Celsius either. But those creditors that took it upon themselves to support 650,000 victims and do the customer service work, as we were left to ourselves to do it. Shout out to you all. You all know who you are, and many of them are in the audience right now. So yeah, it's been an epic journey. I said in 2023 that I would give my last space X space because a bunch of my followers were just really bored of me talking about Celsius and uploading things to YouTube. And so instead, I decided to start doing webinars in a membership portal and start recording everything in a really concise place where everyone can find exactly what they need, because I just simply cannot answer all of the questions 65,000 times every single day when almost everyone is having the same problems. And so I created a little membership portal for those of you that have been on the webinars. We've been giving weekly updates each and every week in a more concise environment rather than doing it on Twitter Spaces. But last night I was so outraged at my little Valentine's gift from Mr. Keith Wofford of White and Case that I thought, do you know what, it's time to come out of retirement on Twitter Spaces for the Celsius bankruptcy and do one final one, and annoy a bunch of my audience that don't want to hear me ever talking about Celsius again. But at the same time, it's an epic day because most of you would have received your distributions by now. If you haven't received them, don't worry. There are a bunch of edge cases. I've got 3 different accounts that I'm trying to get claims from, and only one of them I've received so far. That's my personal account for Coinbase, and I received the first distribution of Bitcoin initially, and then shortly after there was an ETH payment, and I did my first test withdrawal, and after this space I'll be looking to do some of the larger withdrawals as well. Some of you also would have received an email from Odyssey. Odyssey is the transfer agent, and they'll send you a little FAQ where it will guide you on how to create an account with Odyssey so that you can log in and see your shares. That's just simply they're holding the register for all shareholders. If you had a claim of about $5,000 or less, then you won't be a shareholder because you got a higher percentage recovery. But everyone that had a claim of more than $5,000, a bunch of people accidentally ticked a box and opted down to the convenience class. Some people didn't know what they were doing when they did that. Celsius would have emailed everybody that was like over $25,000 and opted down to the convenience class. That basically means that you opted down to receive about $3,500 in crypto. You should reach out to Celsius officially. They don't have to fix that. But I also know that as long as you are reaching out to Celsius and you're engaging with the team, the world's most expensive customer support team in the world, hosted by Kirkland and Ellis at $2,000 an hour, they'll be very happy to receive emails from you and charge it to the estate. But there are a bunch of customer service stuff. They are inundated with tickets, so just be patient. Getting angry isn't going to help. Creating another ticket isn't going to help. On the membership portal, for some reason, Celsius haven't really given any updates other than email. I guess deliberately at one stage they decided they don't want to say the wrong thing. So instead it became up to us. So we put a bunch of diagrams around when to contact Stretto, when to contact Kirkland and Ellis, when to contact White and Case, when to contact the UCC, when to contact Celsius, when to contact Coinbase, when to contact Venmo, and when to contact PayPal for all the different types of things. So we've got that membership portal, which I've been sharing links. I can share that with you as well. That's where I've just been putting all of the stuff, so it's all consolidated in one place, so you don't have to try and find old spaces and old recordings and old tweets and stuff. So that's now, if you haven't received emails from Coinbase or PayPal or Venmo at this stage, either there's been some kind of issue, like the email's just gone to your spam, or they won't be paying you that. A bunch of people received an email today, I think, or recently, saying that, sorry, Coinbase doesn't support your account. PayPal doesn't support your account. There's no choice between PayPal and Coinbase and Venmo. That's decided for you. And if you're in the US, it's PayPal. And because PayPal and Venmo are one company, I think there's a couple of user experiences to claim from either. You get a code, you put the code in, 2 different codes, one for Bitcoin, one for ETH. With Coinbase, no codes needed. You'll receive an email and you'll receive a notification in your Coinbase app. As long as you have a Coinbase account with the same email as your Celsius account, or you logged into your Celsius account and you entered an alternative email in the account profile, then they'll be matching up and you should get a notification, a bell, saying how much Bitcoin and ETH you got. In the membership portal, we created a whole video giving you the exact formula, calculations. A bunch of creditors have done the same. There's a bunch of information. You can either go through the legal docs or you can go through that. Some people are finding it hard to reconcile their calculations. There was a very crazy process in this bankruptcy, which actually meant that we got a much better recovery than we could have got, because the Mashinsky method ended up losing about 75% of the crypto, but then we end up with a bunch of assets and lawsuits and a company that is meant to be going public and a bunch of other things. So at the very, very top of this, I had a pin tweet that says 12 steps to get everything that you're entitled to from Celsius. That gives you an outline of everything you'll need to do, because the crypto distribution is just simply the first part. It's the most substantial part. It's the one that people care about the most. But there's a lot more to try and squeeze, pardon the pun, out of this Celsius bankruptcy. So that's a link you can do. And also at the a bunch of you who are Bank to the Future customers, we put together a solution where we'll take delivery of shares. You can do your ETH staking. You can put your Bitcoin in cold storage, and you can start to develop a whole plan for the next couple of years beyond the whole Celsius side. We've already received a bunch of ETH and applicants, and so you can also apply there. So you got up to 1 year to execute this. I don't suggest you do take a year, but you got up to a year to resolve it. All my conversations with Celsius and Kirkland and Ellis are kind of along the lines of, if you suddenly turn up after a year, your distribution is probably going to be redistributed to all other creditors at that stage. But if you're struggling to get support, you got evidence that you kept trying, you eventually get hold of support, and you're going back and forth. You're trying to figure out how to open a retirement account, a more complicated account with Coinbase Prime. You're trying to get a bunch of stuff together. Maybe you're trying to get your Bank to the Future account approved. You're trying to connect the two. As long as you're going through that whole process, we've got time to do it. But obviously, most people just want to get their funds ASAP and as fast as they can. So those are really just a summary, and I'm happy to take any questions. Azad will start bringing people up. If you've got any questions, bottom right, the purple pill, put the question in there. And just before we go through the shares, put in if you've received your Bitcoin and your ETH already, then put an FU Majinski in the chat, and you can share people any details you think would be useful for them. If you go to the community section on Twitter, we've got a community page of about almost 8,000 Celsius creditors. Any problem you're having, there'll be someone else that's had the same thing. And the community's being very generous answering each other's questions if they've been receiving similar issues. I'm kind of at the stage where I just need to send people links because I just don't have enough time in the day to answer every individual question. So I'll just fire you in a direction of a video I've created or something that helps you answer your question. And unfortunately, you're going to have to do a bit of the work yourself. So you can't just rely on someone to figure everything out for you. If you want to maximize your recovery, then you've got to do a bit of work as well. And, there's been a bunch of people over the last year and a half that have been doing an incredible amount of work. And there's a bunch of people that have just turned up. Be a little bit thoughtful of the fact that they did a lot of the work and they're trying to help you. And a lot of people are being abusive to each other on Twitter for some reason. The other thing I wanted to say is that there was the first Ionic Digital, for those of you that don't know. Ionic Digital is the company that we will be receiving shares in. It represents, based upon their valuation, approximately 14% of our recovery. If the share price is held at $20, there's going to be 37 million shares, and those 37 million shares have been distributed anywhere between 80,000 to 100,000 creditors. Those of you that had smaller claims, you won't be entitled to those shares. And they had their first board meeting yesterday. Throughout this whole process, as we were transitioning from Celsius closing, the Celsius app will be closed at the end of February. And so you've got to, anything you want to do on the Celsius app, make sure you do it before the end of this month. If you're on my mailing list at simondixon.com/recovery, or you've applied to work with Bank to the Future at simondixon.com/club, we'll be emailing you absolutely everything you need to do by the deadline you need to do it. And I'll be sharing with you a video of me doing it for my claim myself as well. So the board had what was meant to be the first board meeting yesterday. And I received an email from the new CEO. For those of you that don't know, the way that the deal ended up is it was framed as an orderly wind down. It was an orderly wind down because Fahrenheit overpromised and underdelivered after taking our legal counsel and taking our plan and whiting case, creating an auction process, and choosing what was meant to be an auction to get the price down from the people that should have delivered the plan, to giving the plan after rejecting our plan to do pretty much everything for free with no cost. Then giving it to the Nova Wolf team, using the auction and the Stalking Horse auction in order to get the crypto that we would have received up from about 8% to what it is today, because they wanted to keep $1 billion. And the auction was designed to use Fahrenheit in order to get the price down. And for some crazy reason, they actually ended up selecting Fahrenheit. And those crazy people overpromised, underdelivered, said they could have an IPO done by the end of the year, said all sorts of things that turned out that it was just completely impossible. And so that's why we ended up in the situation where they pivoted to an orderly wind down. And then US Bitcoin Group, who was the mining company, we had when we were doing the bid, we had a very competent miner that's been mining since 2013. But obviously in this process, they want all the money to stay in the US, and they don't like cheap things. They like to rip off creditors. And so they wanted us to choose a way more expensive provider in the US. Our legal counsel introduced us to US Bitcoin Group, as I covered in my declaration. And then US Bitcoin Group decided with our lawyers in order to form Fahrenheit and then mess around creditors and then merge with Hut 8. And now they're our mining provider and mining partner, and get themselves board seats. And then there was a whole hoo-ha, if you remember, where all of a sudden they threw upon us they're going to give away majority control of the board. And White and Case decided to give every single part of every single person involved in this, whether it's the litigation oversight committee, whether it's the board for Ionic, whether it's the legal counsel to Ionic, whether it's the legal counsel to the litigation oversight committee. They self-traded and decided to give everything to themselves so they continue the Celsius Chapter 11. We played ball through the whole thing. They spent about $350 million of our money after Mijinski lost about $3 billion of our money. And they kept continuing along those lines. And then we reached a stage where, okay, we got a process. We're all working together nicely. We've got to get out of Chapter 11 because the rug pull was coming. If you didn't see, FTX stole all the upside from creditors, gave it to the next subordinated class. If we hit a price of 54,000, because right in the beginning, we fought in order to keep the crypto. And that's the only reason why you're receiving a higher recovery right now. It would have been a lot worse if we hadn't kept the crypto. So they kept the crypto on the balance sheet. And, all of a sudden, there was about over $1 billion discrepancy in what the numbers that were given to us versus what actually ended up being. So we did a bunch of webinars where we deconstructed the balance sheet, figured out where everything was, got it down to about a $72 million discrepancy that we couldn't figure out. And then there was about 600 million of holdbacks because Keith Watford thought that it's a good idea to serve some tough justice on creditors and sue them. And so Keith Watford from White and Case continued to argue with pretty much everyone in this whole case. Every time I had a meeting, he figured out a way of turning it into something that got confrontational and then billing a bunch of hours and billing more and more and more and spending more and more and more, because Keith Watford loves arguing with creditors and arguing with everyone that's trying to find a nice solution. There's a reason why loans got screwed. It's because Keith Watford loves arguing with creditors. And Keith Watford has now been appointed as the legal counsel to Ionic Digital. And he decided, after I got a message from the new CEO, Matt Prozak. We were having a nice space together. Some of you would have attended those. We were on the mining space. He's come across as the new CEO. And so he wanted to do a nice board meeting, get everyone to know each other. Did the board had the invitation. Getting ready for the board meeting, and Keith decides, let's bring up a bunch of shit from the past. let's bring all the Chapter 11 hangover over to Nuco and Ionic. Let's cause a little bit of carnage. We need some more arguments going on because that's the way that Keith loves to do things. And so he started laying into my legal counsel and telling me why I shouldn't be able to attend the board meeting because he doesn't want anyone to observe what he's doing. And so, Matt, do me a favor. I think you should, if you respect your shareholders, if you've got any respect for your shareholders, then get rid of the guy that wants to sue us. Get rid of the guy that's taken it upon himself to spend tens of millions of dollars of creditors' money with no thought or care. Get rid of the guy that wanted to cause carnage in every single negotiation, because Keith Warford has done that right from the beginning until right now. And so yesterday, when Matt asked me to cancel on Valentine's Day, because I'm in a different time zone, I posted a video above of me opening what I thought was my Valentine's Day present, and it turns out that it was a bunch of shit from Celsius for me to read through. And I can only laugh at this stage. But at the same time, Keith Warford thought it would be a good idea to have a board meeting without me. He wants people that aren't going to observe. He wants people that aren't going to say much. He wants people that aren't going to cause actually shareholders to get a better result. He would prefer people that will just let White and Case charge everything. And he decided to try and create carnage. And so the board meeting happened without me yesterday. And I haven't heard anything since. So I took it upon myself to decide that, do you know what? If this is the way it's going to be done, then I think my best position is not being a board observer so they can shut me up and they can get what they want and they can use legal clauses and all sorts of stuff that they wanted to retrade after the negotiation was already agreed. And they want to put more and more and more into that, even though we already signed and agreed. Keith Warford so he can get as much more fees as much more possible out of what's a disastrous situation. So my type of suggestion as a board observer is something along the lines of, no, I'm not just going to sit here and say nothing. I'm going to adhere to all of the policies of the company. I'm going to adhere to the insider trading policy. I ain't going to sell my shares. This was risk FU money for me. I want to make sure that we can try and maximize that. And so I started introducing a lot of my contacts, a lot of people, everything I could. And Keith Warford decided that probably doesn't want someone that's going to observe properly and actually help the company become a better company. And so that's the situation that we find ourselves in now. So I've decided that, while Keith Warford is around, it's probably in my best interest to actually not be gagged. He wanted to gag me. He wanted to make sure I didn't say anything that would help the company. He didn't want everyone to be accountable. And so, I decided that probably my best position is working with shareholders, as I've always worked with creditors, on the outside where I have freedom of speech. And so we're now in a nice position because Keith Warford, with his ingenious strategy of gagging, trying to cause confrontation with the guy that wanted to do the most to try and help this, we're now in a situation where I'm going to hold the company accountable to everything, and I got full freedom of speech with no gag order. So I'll call out everything I see. And the reason I'm doing that is because I ain't selling my shares. I'm not selling my shares like you may want to so that you can give them to your buddies to buy on the cheap. I'm keeping my shares and I'm keeping them till the end. And us shareholders, we need to work together to hold the board accountable for the shit that they keep promising and under delivering upon. And I'll keep doing that because as a board observer, I couldn't say shit. I could only talk about public information. But now I can talk about whatever we see because Keith Warford has decided that having genuine observers that are going to hold people accountable isn't something he wants. And so they just decided to have the whole board meeting and leave me on the side, wanted me to be treated completely differently. And here we are today. So that's where I see everything going with Nuco. So I posted a few links above. And now let's move onwards and upwards, because now we can continue as shareholders holding the people that have made a bunch of promises accountable for their promises. Everybody that's on the board are the same people that made most of the decisions that put us in the place that we are. And so if we can do everything we can to hold the board accountable, then hopefully we'll have a better company and a better share price. Because the easy thing that they want is for us to just sell and get rid of us pain in the ass. But guess what? This is 100% creditor owned. You work for us, and we're working together in order to make sure that you do what you promised to do, because you took a bunch of money from us. And no, the lawyers shouldn't be the same ones that rinsed us in Chapter 11. Matt, if you care about shareholders, put some new lawyers in, get some fresh blood, ones that actually care about deal making, not deal destruction. And that's my suggestion. Will it happen? We'll see. Depends if all the board members are there, because they simply had a deal with each other that said, you give me that job and I'll give you that job. Pretty sure that that's might have been what happened here, because every faction of every ounce of every part of this is dominated by the same people that put us through all this shit for the last year and a half. And I wanted to put all of my resources to help, but in every part of that, it was just rejected, and Keith Warford had his way. So we're now combined as shareholders. At Bank to the Future, we'll be taking delivery of a bunch of shares for the international customers that want to use us. We'll also find a nice solution for US people that want to do the same, or they can use their own, brokers. But remember, we 100% own this company, and they made promises to us, and they don't want to be observed. So here we are today. With that in mind, Azad, why don't you see if anyone wants to ask any questions or share any thoughts? I'm happy to take questions about your claims, anything, any problems you're having, because
Wait,
the UCC ain't doing customer support.
Can we just start a fuck Keith Wolford chant real fast?
Over to you, Tone.
Can we do this? I've been doing this for a year. Can people join in, please?
Go on then, Tone. Lead the way.
Keith Wolford is the biggest piece of shit human being probably on the planet. I've been saying this for a year, maybe more. I don't know how long I've been at this, but he is by far the most, I don't know how to say it, but the worst person probably in the country, possibly in the world. And that's coming from majority of his clients that I've spoken to, majority of his friends who fucking hate the guy. I hate the guy. I hated him before I even got to know anything about him, and I hate him even more now that I've gotten to know things about him. The worst human being probably ever.
Yeah, Matt. So if you care about shareholders, take that on board. It's a real slap in the face. He damaged a lot of us. Did a lot of bad work.
Side, we've got a few people.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
I guess.
Sorry, 1 second, Alexander.
I want to say first of all, I can confirm that this.
Sorry, Alex. Can you hear us?
Alexander.
1 second.
Let us speak.
Alex, we've got we have a queue of people. So what I'm going to do is, it's going to be Natty first. Then we've got Orpheus and Crypto Ball, and then Alexander. So, but Simon, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hope.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, so we know that there's a bunch of people who want to come on here, but I'll try and moderate it as best as I can, and we have an order in place. So I'll just call up the names, and then you get started. But before we begin, you've mentioned the name. Strangely enough, a few influential people in this space aren't aware of who Keith Wolford is. Could you just remind everyone who exactly that person is?
Yeah, Keith Warford was one of the main lawyers for White and Case. His job was always to play good cop, bad cop. And so while, Aaron was always focused on solution, Greg Pesh kind of had a bit of an altercation with BitBoy in the middle of this, for those that didn't see it, and then kind of disappeared. But Keith Warford was a consistent arguer, a consistent create confrontation, a consistent destroy deals so that he can charge more. So he was one of the lawyers for White and Case, and White and Case were the legal counsel to the UCC. And White and Case ended up getting pretty much every single part of every single faction of every single bit of money that there is to be made out of the post-emergence bankruptcy. And now he is the head lawyer for Ionic Digital, the company that we are 100% shareholders on. And if the board cares an ounce about us, put in the bottom right what you think the board should do with their appointment of Keith Warford.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, let's bring up Nati as the first speaker. Over to you, Nati.
Yes, thank you, Azad. Quick question, Simon. Did the other board observer attended the first board meeting yesterday?
Yeah, Joe and Brett are welcome to come up if they want to share something, but they're probably now in the realm of gag orders. And I always had a strategy of how I was going to do it. I was going to make sure I was giving updates based upon public information. There's been no updates rather than the Form 10. So all of the webinars that I gave was around the Form 10. I'm a shareholder in over 100 different companies. I know how to walk the tightrope between compliance and communications, confidential information and servicing companies. It's only when I got into the Celsius scam that I ended up having to whistleblow. And it's only since I realized, or Tony realized a year and a half ago, but I finally got to the stage where I couldn't put up with any of the BS of the second scam called Chapter 11. And then I realized that the third part of it is coming over because the hangovers of White and Case and Keith Warford are now coming over to make sure they get every part of our recovery too.
Okay, and the board observer, yeah, this is settled. They cannot remove you or another. Are you saying you are not a board observer anymore?
Currently, Keith Warford uninvited me to the first board meeting, and he decided to. So Matt from Ionic Digital contacted me, representing the new company. I haven't got a confidentiality agreement with the new company because Keith Warford forgot to send one. And then they had a planned support agreement that said that we would sign a board observer agreement that we painfully went through in order to try and get that all settled up front. So creditors had full transparency over this. And then, so last night he decided to uninvite me. And the reason I'm able to talk about that is because I don't have a confidentiality agreement with Ionic Digital, because he decided that he wanted to retrade on the board observer agreement and wasn't happy with me attending the first board meeting. A bit concerned about how I might actually do my job.
Okay, to definitely move on the distribution subject. Besides this drama, a board observer can share the meeting information with the public. What is the limit generally throughout your experience, or the agreement you are supposed to sign with this PSA? Can you share information? The other board observer, let's say Joe, what are the limitations?
They're not allowed to share anything. They have to sign a gag order in order to receive information. And then once that information becomes publicly available, there would be probably a non-existent communications policy within the company that I suggested they write so that we could actually know how we can communicate. So that will probably come through. And then they could only talk about public information. They can't talk about non-public information. And there's an insider trading policy as well.
All right. Final question is, did you make the calculation? Did you receive 57.9% of your dollarized claim?
That's my job
one?
after this call. I haven't even checked yet. You know, I didn't even know there was 289 Bitcoin missing because I was so busy trying to do a reorg plan. But yeah, I'll start doing my calculations afterwards. That's my next call, my next job.
All right. Let's move on.
How about you, Natty?
I got some dust. I machine skid myself. I liquidate myself before this whole mess. So I got more than the 70%. So, and most of the people share different percentage. So yeah, my final point may be for Cam, if you know the answer is, who is going to track the distribution percentage if you respect the plan? Who is going to be able to audit that?
Okay, thank you, Natty. The next lineup of speakers is going to be Orpheus, Crypto Bull, Alexander, Tony V, then Tecmo. So let's go first of all with Orpheus.
Okay, can you guys hear me well?
Hey, Orpheus.
Hey, Simon,
we're finally there, Orpheus, man. You've been waiting. Yeah. You have been every space, man, trying to find the positive energy in every step of this direction. But hey, you got some of your crypto back, and we're onwards and upwards. So what you got to say, Orpheus?
You know what, Simon? I gotta say, you've been a blessing throughout the whole process, and there's a few others in the space as well that really put themselves out there to try to calm a lot of nerves. There's no such thing more frustrating than ambiguity. You know, if we knew we were getting nothing back, we could have closed the doors and just moved on with our lives. But just knowing that there was a possibility of getting something and not knowing what, you know, you guys really weathered the storm for a lot of us. So first and foremost, just want to give my appreciation to you guys putting in your personal time to help not just myself, but many of the other creditors through the process. And you're right, you know, we looked for every ounce of positivity, and we finally got some positive news back. Not the greatest news, but I know I've seen a few people saying that they got more than they expected, others saying less than they expected. But again, something is better than nothing. And so my first question is a personal one, and then I just wanted to actually discuss with you some of the things that you brought up about White and Case, and as creditors, what we can do. So first of all, you know, I received a distribution code for my Bitcoin about 3 days ago, and then it's just been crickets. I haven't heard anything about Ether, and then I just got my shares email as well. Is that something that's normal? Is there some type of a time lag between potentially getting Bitcoin and Ether distribution, such as 3 days or a week or so? Is that something that you've heard or you're familiar with?
Yeah. So most people they did get them separate. They did get two codes, but most people received them on the same day or in a similar vicinity. If anyone else has had a similar experience, go to the purple pill, tag Orpheus, and let them know what your experience has been. But I think most people have received it within a similar time frame. They are yeah, that's what I heard from most people anyway. So yeah, you got some missing ETH, so you just got a bit of a chaser job to try and get that ETH.
Okay, understood. It's not like they can actually convert all my crypto into one or the other and distribute it as one or the other, right? They have to give me Bitcoin and ETH.
Yeah, everybody should have received Bitcoin and ETH unless they had a very specific arrangement, in which case they would know. And very few had a specific arrangement.
Okay, understood. All right, and then with regards to
the exception of custody, I assume you're earned.
Okay, so what do you mean specific arrangement? Like the class group had a specific arrangement?
Yeah, like so some of the loans group had the ability to get it back in one crypto if they were doing a refi, or some of the larger creditors that may have made a specific arrangement with Kirkland and Ellis, and had a large claim. Those were the only two I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. So because I do recall sending an email out asking if it's possible to collect in one or the other, but they never confirmed one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm assuming if you never got a confirmation, they wouldn't have done anything like that. You would know about it if they had done it. That's my guess. But you're gonna have to go through. Well, it's worth calculating the percentage. Is it? Do you know what percentage of it crypto to crypto?
Well, from the Bitcoin that I had in the account, I basically received half of my Bitcoin back.
Right. That sounds like both distributions, though. So there's a possibility that they got your email and they did something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they probably just put it all into Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it sounds wrong, by the way. So I don't want to dox you, but
yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously less, but I mean, I think it was like, well, okay. If we're talking about, we're talking about claim a dollarized value, right?
Oh no, sorry, I was talking crypto to cryptos. Yeah, dollarized 50%. It should be a bit more, but it sounds about right.
It sounds about right.
Yeah,
Okay.
57%. It should be exactly.
Okay.
But then if the price of crypto is moved and you're working off today's price, that would change things slightly to the higher.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. And then
Morpheus, real quick.
Yeah.
Just take like Simon's saying, if you just take your dollarized claim, if your claim was $10,000, and you take the 57%, match that to the price of Bitcoin if we're talking Bitcoin only, I think it was 43,000 on the effective date. So match that up, and if you can determine that you got 57% in Bitcoin, you probably won't be getting an ETH email. Because like Simon was saying, I've talked to so many people and they got their ETH email like an hour later.
Got it. Okay. All right. So then they probably just converted everything into Bitcoin. That's kind of weird without sending a confirmation. They said, yeah, they said it may be possible. If it is, we'll let you know. We'll send you an email. And I didn't, and I just asked I'm like, is it possible to request a significant portion in one other than the other, not like an absolute portion?
Yeah, it feels like that happened to you. But yeah, it's strange it didn't confirm it.
Yeah, that is strange. Well, I'll do a little bit of digging and see what the situation is, but it sounds like that may be the case. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you guys' insight on that. And the other thing is like you were mentioning about this attorney and also the fact that this is not 100% creditor owned, but 99% creditor owned. What can we start to do, or what steps can we take as creditors? Like, do we need separate legal counsel to sue the board? When are they up for a vote? When can we vote these people out? When can we get Matt on a space? Because I know you made some shout outs to Matt to kind of heed some of your warnings and advice, but I don't think he's on this space. So, what kind of things do you think we can do proactively to start to check these fools that have got us into this situation and that continue to just milk the cow?
Yeah, well, we can stay together as a community of shareholders, and there are certain shareholder rights. White and Case certainly put in a bunch of clauses to make sure that you couldn't lose your job. But there are governance documents, and I'd like to give the board every opportunity to. I wanted to give them all every opportunity to show what they can do, and I think there's still time to do that, but just been let down time and time and time and time and time again. And for me, like, yesterday was the last shot for me. I don't know. We'll see what happens next. But we can stay together as shareholders. I've been, the Bank to the Future team went through all of the different documents and put together summaries in the Celsius Recovery Solution membership portal. Went through all the different specific shareholder rights, went through all of the different types of shares, went through all the different terms of all the different board members. So we've been through every part of it. And yeah, they certainly buttoned up everything in order to maximize the return for for those that were involved in restructuring the process.
Okay, got it. All right, so then basically stay together, and the best form to do that is probably through X. And is that how you intend on updating us in terms of?
No, this is my last X. I'm going to be.
Oh,
I started giving webinars because my audience are just not like a massive chunk of my audience aren't Celsius creditors, and so I want to. I've been doing regular, very targeted webinars in it's simondixon.com/recovery.
got it.
That's where I
Okay.
put all the updates, and that'll give you invite to all the webinars and stuff in the future.
Okay, and that'll be specifically also related to the Ionic mining business as well.
Well, I'm on the outside now, unless I hear otherwise. So, as far as I know, I was told that I was a board observer, and I got uninvited from the first board meeting, and that's all I know. And Keith Warford decided to lay in to my legal counsel and retrade, and that's all I know. And so, don't know what happens after listening to this. We'll see.
But wait,
at the
really
moment,
quick,
I think I'm on the
you don't
outside,
have.
and on the outside, I can say whatever the hell I want, and we're in it together with complete freedom of speech to make sure that we're holding everyone accountable.
So they've actually removed you as a board observer, or they've just kind of like
They
stonewalled you?
reneged on the agreement and just started the board meeting without me and invited everyone else but me.
Well, you know, I just want to share one last thing from Alex Mashinsky to his wife and to this Keith Wolford guy. I promise you guys, their biggest karma is that they have to live in their skin. And, you know, I'm just grateful and thankful for who I am and that I'm nothing like those people. And if you guys are creditors, from what I've heard, many of you are really stand-up individuals. And that's something to be proud of, that, you know, in this world, you can fuck someone over to get ahead, or you can do it the right way and you can help others and cooperatively make it together. So, Simon, I'm with you on this in terms of shareholders sticking together. Let's do it together. Let's cooperate with one another, and let's let the wolves chew themselves to death. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, cheers, Orpheus. I'm a big believer in karma. You know, some people leave it to their final hours to get their karma, but that's a life choice for everybody to make.
Yes, agreed. Thanks a lot, Simon.
Okay, the next lineup is Crypto Bull, Alexander, Tony V, Tecmo, and then we'll move on to Captain DKS, New World, and then Sharon. So let's start with, let's go over to Crypto Bull. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
First, I want to thank Simon, everything you have done. It's been awesome. My question is regarding my own distribution. So on Monday, I got BTC and ETH emails. I'm a US creditor, by the way. I'm a US creditor. I have 6 figures with Celsius. So I went to my PayPal account and it was completely valid and verified. And I was even able to buy Bitcoin on my account. I put my Celsius claim code there. It verifies it. Everything seems to go well. Then it asks my SMS verification, but I never got any text. And it just said, like, we can verify you. And then I retried the code, the claim code, and then it's not even finding the code anymore. It seems like the code is gone and it's used. Well, then the next day, on Tuesday, I get an email from Stretto saying that my claim can't be distributed through PayPal or Venmo. And I called PayPal and I asked several questions, what should I do? And then they said, basically, because I had a prepaid phone, and they said you can't use prepaid phone, and that may be an issue. Like if you have a prepaid phone, they can verify your address or name or something, and it failed. So now I'm kind of scared that are they going to cut me a check, and I'm not getting my coins because now there's like a technical issue and it failed and the code is gone. So that's my fear right now.
Let me share what I know. So
okay, got it.
how can I? PayPal is notorious for that because of they're particularly conservative. The funny thing is with PayPal, yeah, is they got a lot of chargeback hangover. So when you deliver goods and make payment by card, you can call up the bank and reverse the payment for about 6 months. And so whenever they wanted to disserve you as a customer, they would make sure that they go through the whole chargeback period for 6 months. And that's why everyone is just infamous. I got banned years ago. You know, everyone's banned from PayPal. Everyone will be banned by the end of this probably. Normally they have that 6 months period. I've met people that are in your situation. It went for review, and then they said we're closing your account and you're going to wait 6 months. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you. But they're kind of using the hangover of credit cards and applying it to crypto, even though there's no chargeback and all crypto payments are full and final. They kind of got a bit of a legacy process going on. But I haven't really got any advice other than you got to work with PayPal to figure out what you can do. And if anyone else has got any advice, put it in the purple pill, tag. Sorry, what's your name? Tag that handle. Yeah.
Yeah, Cryptable.
Yeah. And let them know if you're experiencing the same thing. But yeah, it's just PayPal customer support at that stage, unfortunately.
Okay, so there's no way I could get it through Coinbase or anything. It needs to be PayPal.
No, there's no choice. If you're international, you're Coinbase. If you can't be supported by Coinbase, then Stretto is going to email you and send you a check in the post. I asked if they could do bank wires. I haven't got an answer on that yet. But at the moment, the process is check. So for international, that's a big issue. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to cash a US dollar check. I wouldn't have a clue how to do that. But that is something that people will have to figure out. And then there's uncashed checks, unfortunately, as ruthless as it sounds. If they're not cashed within a certain time frame, within a year, then that funds are going to sit in the account and will be distributed for creditors into the future. So I think there's going to be another big payment. Well, not a big payment, but it could be worth like anything between 2 to 7%, depending on how we go, towards the end of the year as a result of those that didn't actually get through that process. But yeah, if PayPal, my guess, and if anyone knows otherwise, if they don't want to serve you as a customer, they'll probably lock you in for 6 months and then allow you to withdraw that as Bitcoin at the end of it, or they may force you into dollars. Hopefully not. Hopefully they don't force you into dollars now and then make you wait 6 months so you lose the market. That would be the worst of all worlds. But they might leave you there for 6 months in Bitcoin, in which case you get exposure, but you kind of don't get to put it in cold storage or sell it.
Yeah.
But hopefully you can get it out sooner. Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. My last question regarding this is that let's say that Bitcoin goes to $100,000 in the meanwhile in the next 6 months. Would I get the kind of if the check came through in mail, would it kind of reflect that appreciation or not?
No, that would be a PayPal policy, but from the Celsius level, they know who can be supported by Coinbase, and you would have received an email. They know who can be supported by PayPal, and you would have received an email. And then once you're in Coinbase or you're in PayPal, then they'll have their account closure process or review process or increasing withdrawal limit process. At that stage, you're a customer of PayPal or Coinbase. But if you never get to PayPal and Coinbase because you're from a country which neither of those is supported, you're going to go to Stretto. And Stretto have a mechanism for distributing dollar checks in the post. In that case, my guess is that if they don't have enough dollars to meet that, I think they would have managed it where they got enough dollars. But if they don't have enough dollars, then yeah, they'd have to sell over some of the leftover crypto. But I don't think they'll be taking currency risk in these scenarios. But who knows?
Okay, got it. All right, thank you, Simon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Crypto Ball. Okay, over to Alexander.
Thank you, guys. Azad, sorry, I mean, X is still pretty buggy and 1,000 people listened to the call. So I just could not hear you. So first of all, I can confirm that crypto distribution as well as share distribution also started for the international people. So I know at least 3 people who got their funds for Coinbase. It's a very smooth process. You get a mail, you do not have to do something. You log into your account, you see the balance which was distributed to you. I want to say thanks to everyone who tried to educate people on what's going on, as well as provided information to unwind this total mess or fraud, and who fought for creditors to get at least, I don't know if we can call it a fair deal, but to get at least something back. It would be great if someone could update me. I mean, how much the lawyers now got. My estimations are between 450 and 500 million. And Simon, I just wanted to say 2 more things because 1,000 people listen to the call, right? I mean, what did we learn from it? Self-custody, for sure. And that self-sovereignty comes with a cost. So, which is also when I hold my coins with you, will not go away. So the best advice probably would be to have 2 accounts, one non-custodial, one custodial, and to get familiar with what means self-custody. And I'm sure that going forward, we have a lot of things to talk in the future. What's the right punishment for Mr. Mishinsky? When it comes to Bitcoin, I made the math for myself. So I had to divide everything by 4.25. So when I divide the balance I had there in Celsius by 4.26, I see the amount now, what I get in Bitcoin. And for Ethereum, it was like almost by 2. And when I just look at the fiat side, it's about the balance I have now times 3.5, and I get to the value what is shown in the Celsius account, just for reference for other people. And I had a lot of other ship coins, let's put them this way, so, and never took out a loan. So that's pretty, I mean, again, I'm glad that I got something back, but I definitely learned my lesson. Thank you.
Did you have a question for Simon, or that's it?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Alex. All right, we'd like to take questions if that's the format that we'd like to go to. So the next question, please, let's bring up Tony V and then Tekmo.
Yeah, I doubt Tony's going to have a question. He'll have a statement.
I don't have an actual question. I just my ears were ringing. I felt the Keith Wolford hate somehow, and I had to jump in. But yeah, just from experience, this is the Keith Wolford white in case playbook. They will start a fight with you, right? It'll be the dumbest fight you can think of. They will wait for your reaction. They will poke and prod until they get the reaction. And then they will use your reaction as a reason to justify the fight, which is probably what they're going to do for you, which is probably what their plan was for you the whole time. I told you, don't take these guys at their word. These are all a bunch of pieces of shit. It's a little different now out of bankruptcy than in bankruptcy, because in bankruptcy they have basically, they can do whatever they want. They know that they'll get releases at the end of the whole thing. So whatever wrongdoing they did, and there was a ton of it, they got released of all of it. But now that it's out of bankruptcy, they don't get that same deal. So they have to actually play by the rule. So we have more power than we did during the bankruptcy. But just understand, this is the playbook. Your reaction is your reaction they wanted you to have. And then the next steps that they will take is going to be the steps that they planned while they were coming to this idea. So just wanted to throw that out there.
No, completely agree, Tone. So the plan was, people trust Simon. Get him as an observer. People will then vote the plan that respect what Simon's been doing, because they did no bloody customer service for the last year and a half, and we've been at it like for the last year and a half. Oh my God, I don't think I've ever invested anything more into an investment than this. It's absolutely insane. But that's what ended up happening. And then do something outrageous right before the board meeting, so that I do something like this, and then they got exactly what they wanted. and then White and Case and Keith Warford get to rinse as much as they can from the 225 million. So here's the difference. Here's the dynamic. The board work for shareholders. We're shareholders, and the board work for us. They have to report every quarter on the results that they have achieved. And there are two board observers left, which are creditors, which is Joe and Brett, assuming I'm no longer a board observer. I've got no idea. I assume I'm not. They're able to, everyone in the board is able to discuss public information. And White and Case has a culture of leave creditors dry, don't say shit, and things can't go wrong. And so the reason that we're all left hanging here is because they decided that they don't want to communicate with us because we may ask questions that they don't want to answer. And so they went radio silent. Yeah, you know, it looked like I was going to be an observer and I was going to hold the company accountable and I was going to push back on things. And I don't think White and Case wanted that. I don't think Keith Warford wanted that. And so then we ended up in the situation that we're in. But here's the dynamics. White and Case, if they continue to work for the board, works for the board. This ain't Chapter 11 no more. There is a company called Ionic Digital. And that company called Ionic Digital can hire whoever the hell they want. And if it turns out that a lawyer that's being destructive is employed, it's probably because they were all meant to be together, because they all sorted each other out in order to build the dynamic. Now, they either work together as a good board or they don't. We know because of the share price. If the share price is crashing, it's either market forces or it's because the board isn't working together synergetically. And if they ain't working together synergetically, they ain't going to produce the results. And we hold them accountable to the results that they produce. So the share price in the long term is a reflection of the value that the board can create. And they publish their results every quarter. And we have shareholder rights. And as shareholders, we can decide, as long as we work together nice, we can coordinate on certain things, certain actions, and we can, as a community, report back information, disseminate information, and work together. They chose that they want me on the other side, and so I'm now on the other side, where I'll be just exercising my shareholder rights. But the board works for shareholders, and the lawyers work for the board. So if the board decides that they want to keep this law firm that shareholders don't want, it's either because they know something that we don't know, or it's because they all had a deal together that put them in the situation that they're in right now. And historically, boards are very, very volatile after bankruptcy emergence. So whether there's changes, they made sure that they put as many clauses as possible where they can do whatever the hell they want in line with the policies and everything in the company. And the board observers, and if I were a board observer, I would be observing all of those policies to ensure that they make sure that there's a fair structure that actually counters many of the clauses that I knew that were put in there in order to protect directors from their shareholders. But yeah, the lawyers work for the board works for us, and that's the dynamic in how it's meant to work. And then everything's meant to be transparent, and we get to judge, and the share price should reflect the value that they're creating in the long term or short term dynamics in market in the short term. Okay, next one.
All right, thank you, Tony. Tecmo, you got a question?
Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
Yep.
So real quick on the observer thing, Simon, if they are there and they are gagged, and then they can only release public info at an undetermined way at some point down the line when it's already public, what is the actual role of the observer in terms of helping shareholders?
Yeah, good question. So you can read the observer agreement, and I think it's down to the observer. But if the board wants to, they can unanimously decide to have a meeting without observers. So the board, it's a bit of a it was a bit of a thing that was probably put in place in order to make us feel a little bit happy because they didn't want to give any of the non-UCC creditors a board seat.
Yeah, it seems more like the illusion of transparency than transparency.
Yeah, so there was, from my understanding, 2 board observers were on the board meeting yesterday. Brett and Joe, as far as I know. I haven't got that confirmed from them. It's just what I believe to be true based upon the communications that happened prior to me getting taken out of the equation. And then they can have a meeting and decide, whether they want to exclude any of those board observers. But if they really want the company to do well and they want to be held accountable, then you have to have a really nice conflicts of interest policy, a nice insider trading policy, a nice remuneration policy, a nice and these mining companies are very prolific for issuing insane amounts of shares for board bonuses. If you look at Marathon, the biggest complaint from the shareholders is the insane amount of shares that the executives pay themselves. But as an observer, my hope is that the observers will hold them accountable to remembering the essence of what this is. This is a 100% owned company, or give or take after dilution, of victims that were scammed from Majinsky. And any actions that are designed to make us want to sell at a discount in distress, karma will catch up.
Yeah, and I don't say this to disparage Joe or whoever the other observer is, but if they're an observer and they can't say anything, then we might as all be we might all well be observers. It's the same thing, right? If there's no information sharing, then why have the observer is kind of my thought, but whatever.
Yeah, and that was Keith Warford wanted to ensure that everything's in there that would remove any type of accountability or power, so that they have complete, so that the board has complete unanimous, and that observer agreement becomes pretty redundant in terms of the original goal of what it was designed to achieve. That's the Keith Warford way.
Yeah, I mean, lawyer's gonna lawyer. That's what you'd expect out of them, right? And it's a situation. The whole entire bankruptcy is a show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome
No,
situation.
we can blame the lawyers for Chapter 11, but the board decides who their lawyers are. The board decides how they treat shareholders. The board decides who they hire and fire. The board
Yeah,
is fully responsible for everything that they do from here. And if the board isn't listening to what shareholders want based upon their experience of the shit that they've been put through over the last year and a half, then it tells you everything about the board, not the lawyers. Lawyers work for me and my company, and the board in the company. They can advise, they can say what they can give suggestions, but the board they still have to do what the board say. So there's no scapegoat to lawyers after this. This is the board's decision. The board decided that I wasn't going to be an observer and I wasn't able to attend the first meeting unless Keith Warford decided that he's going to go on his own because he still thinks this is Chapter 11 and he's in charge. I don't know the dynamics yet. Maybe they haven't adjusted, but whatever happens from here is the board's decision, not the
yeah.
lawyers.
And it like you said though, it comes down to watch people's actions, not their words, and we will see. We will see what the board does, right? And then we'll be able to ascertain their incentives and what their actual goals are. Um, one quick comment. I see Ionic Digital's Twitter person, whoever runs the page, is in the audience. So if they're listening, I just wanted to give a comment that when you post stuff like, "Hey man, now that the market's recovered, creditors getting like 85% recovery," is extremely tone deaf and pisses everyone off because that's not true. They were getting 57% of their dollarized claim, which ends up being 25% of what they're actually wanted. So it's a massive loss. And then when you or not you, Simon, when you the Twitter account person or any of these lawyers going on talking about how they saved us. It's extremely frustrating and pisses everyone off. So if you want to start out on the right foot, actually have some semblance of what people went through during this process with their life savings, and don't freaking lie to them and misrepresent the actual recovery amount. Don't put out this BS about, oh, we're up to 85% because you factor in the Ionic shares, which by the way are worthless right now, but hopefully will become worth something at some point. But it's 57% of your dollarized claim, which is actually 25-30%, which people are getting back. And if people, actually knew that, oh, yeah, they got back, they had, 5 Bitcoin on there and they got back 1.25 Bitcoin, they'd be like, holy shit, that sucks. And that was your life savings because Alex Mashinsky told you that everything was over collateralized and this is safer than a bank. That's a very different feel. So don't put that shit out there. Okay. Knock it off. And then one more quick question.
Sorry, sorry. Let me just interject there. Just a few people pointing out the X handle, Twitter handle of Ionic isn't official.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
then
It's not official. There's an Ionic digital community, which is not Ionic digital, and then there's which has got an X on the end, and then there's Ionic digital, which is unbranded for now because I don't think they've come up with a logo.
all right. Well, then that's my mistake to Ionic. But you might want to get a handle on this Ionic digital account that is making you look bad by posting that.
but we were. I think now's a good time to sort of welcome anyone who is representing Ionic and is happening to listen in on this space to come up
Yeah,
and
let me
have this chat.
address that as well, and then Tetmo, you can have your final point. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, prohibiting the board from communicating with their shareholders right now. Don't believe it if they say they do. They are allowed to talk about anything that is in the Form 10. The Form 10 is publicly available information on the SEC's website where they disclose everything that they believe a shareholder needs to know in order to get to grips with this company and its history. And they're allowed to talk about it. If they're not talking about it, it's because the culture of zero communication that was created by Keith Warford and his crew has been moved across to the culture of the company. And my challenge to the culture of the company is adjust your culture to one of communications, because this is where the world is going right now. And make sure that you hire skilled people that know how to operate within the confines of what you can and can't communicate. Guess what? I was happy to do that, but it seems like White and Case and Keith Warford don't really value anyone that likes to actually communicate, having over a decade of experience in dealing with this very situations of Bitcoin companies and crypto. So if they don't speak to you right now, it's because they are deciding that the culture of White and Case is coming across to Ionic Digital, which is don't communicate with people in case you say something wrong. And then you can just have backdoor conversations with Keith Warford, making arguments with everybody so they can maximize the value that they're billing rather than actually working on diplomacy and mediation. So that's what I say. And also, if Ionic Digital do host a Twitter space and you don't see me invited up, it's because they didn't invite me up. I will put my hand up and I will look to speak and I will look to ask the tough questions that I think will make the company a better company. I'm not here to do anything other than try and hold the board accountable to what they believe that they can do. And I'll be fair in that communication, but if they don't let it up, it's because they're very deliberately don't want to answer the very type of questions that I would have asked as a board observer. Over to you, Tetmo.
Thanks. And yeah, this last point. One, if you guys are in the US and you haven't received your email yet, definitely check your spam. Mine was in my spam folder. And my question is this, if you don't have access to your email account anymore, your Celsius email account, have you heard of them potentially doing anything about that, like mailing, like remember when when you had to elect to vote or not vote for the plan, they actually physically mailed something to my wife because she didn't have access to her email account. Have you heard of anything about them potentially emailing those? I mean, not emailing, mailing those codes or anything about that?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with anything like that yet. And yeah, you would have to contact Celsius to actually change your email. And a normal protocol would be to do like an advanced EDD type of selfie video conference call would be a normal protocol. And my guess is those that are in that situation, they're probably saving those till a little bit later. So my suggestion would be just be patient. Also, understand the difference between Celsius and Ionic. Celsius is the legacy company, and they've hired a plan administrator, which is Chris Ferrari, that gets paid very healthy in order to meet certain goals. And the reason these distributions happened is because they get paid, incentivized financially to meet certain goals. And Ionic Digital, US Bitcoin Group, and Hut 8 are incentivized to get this company public before the 31st of May. If they don't get the company public before the 31st of May, then the board can choose to cancel the contract, but they'd have to pay the first year of management fees as part of that. And I just want to put a disclaimer out here. Nothing I'm saying is representing the company. Nothing's information that I've obtained through this is all publicly available information. Because guess what? When they weren't doing customer support, I was reading 4,000 documents and condensing them down for creditors because the UCC couldn't be asked to do it.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Azad. And imagine where we'd be if those financial incentives actually aligned with creditor interests throughout this process. Thanks.
Thank you, Tekmo. Let's bring on Captain DKS, then it will be Sharon and Robert. So Captain DKS.
Hi, can you hear me?
Aye, aye, Captain.
Aye, Mr. Simon. Good day to all. First of all, I would like to congratulate all who has received their distributions or claim codes. Second, Mr. Simon, I understand your frustration, and it is outrageously, unfair to not invite you to the first board meeting after all you have done. So, keeping it short, coming back to my question. My question is, I'm a creator from India, and I have a big Celsius claim, 6-figure claim. And unfortunately here, the Coinbase is not supported. Only the wallet is supported, but the exchange is not supported. And as per the information, I'm supposed to get a check in USD, and I don't know what I'll do with that. And is there any way that Strato can, send me the in-kind crypto of whatever the balance is left to
the answer is no.
any of the addresses?
Yeah, the answer is no. They're not licensed in order to be able to do that distribution, and so they'd have to have the license, and then they'd have to find another partner to be able to do it, and they won't have any crypto. They would have already hedged out all of the dollars they need versus all the crypto they need, and they ain't going to take currency risk in order to buy back the crypto. So unfortunately, they won't give you. It's a lost cause. You won't. You have to figure out how to cash a US dollar check, or I'll try and lobby for bank wires and see if you can do an international SWIFT, but they haven't committed to that. Strato is set up to send checks in the post, and then you're gonna have to figure out how to cash a dollar check.
Unfortunately, I have not received any email regarding the check also.
You wouldn't receive.
However,
any if you have. I reckon you're going to have another couple of weeks till you receive something.
Okay, I have received the Ionic Digital shares email today. However, I know at least 20, 30 creditors from India who have big claims, and they are all in the same boat. And I know a couple of more countries who have a lot of creditors like Malaysia, and there must be many more who are stuck in the same position. But I wonder, if they are so willing to send us the balance crypto back, why cannot it be sent in any address? But I understand that is not legally possible.
Yeah, they have to have a distribution partner, and it's expensive to get a distribution partner. was hard enough getting Coinbase and PayPal.
They only want to give business to the US entities, you know.
Well,
And
that's
I,
Chapter 11 for you. Yeah. They are looking at. I think they were looking at. They did put a shout out to some additional distribution partners, so there is a glimmer of hope that something might come, but nothing's committed at this stage.
Okay, understood regarding that. You know, I have totally lost my trust in US judicial system as well. I thought, you know, that is one of the best countries, but that is not the case. I think they are much more corrupt than, you know, any other nation. And my last question to you is there any update on the scammer Alex Mashinsky? Where is the case now headed?
Yeah, so the issue with Chapter 11, and that relates to the Mashinsky method, is that because Mashinsky operates an illegal bank and didn't have the licenses to do, you know, offer securities or offer a custody service, then he ended up losing a load of money, which made him an illegal fractional reserve bank. And if you were a broker, then you would go under a SEPA liquidation, which would be where you'd get consumed into another broker. And if you were a bank, then you'd get gobbled up by another bank or an FDIC bailout. So what happened is he put us in a situation where we were just completely covered. So he bait and switched the terms and conditions. And then the lawyers illegally determined that our coins were property of the state, even though that was not legal in order to do that, because Judge Glenn prefers to follow the terms and conditions and nobody fought that battle, because it turned out that if we did fight that battle, then everyone, because Mashinsky lost a bunch of Bitcoin, everyone that had Bitcoin would end up with a tiny recovery. And then everybody that had like Solana, for example, which may have had a smaller hole, would have ended up with much more. So that was like the kind of the situation. Now, what happened with Chapter 11 is the lawyers decided that, hey, we can just do what Mashinsky did. We can spend client money, but with the blessing of the US government. And so the Chapter 11 process, even in FTX, if you look at it, in FTX, the money was custody, and yet they just let the lawyers spend, by the time this is done, $1 billion of creditors' money. And so basically, the Chapter 11 process allows you to do the Mashinsky method, but legally. And then the law firms are also in charge of the process. And so they can literally just sit there, put all their paralegals to answer customer support questions and charge their hourly rate. And they can just go and go and go and go and go. And then they can decide what other professionals, and then they can decide if we restructure, we can also give all of our mates the cozy positions in the restructuring. And that's exactly what happened in this whole process. And every time we tried to fight against it, we ended up having to incur a legal fee. So those that wanted to fight the machine ended up with a massive legal fee. You know, Bank to the Future ended up with a legal fee that ate into their recovery, where it hits the point where what's the point in spending any more, because now there's going to be zero recovery. And then they fight against that. And then so you end up paying the fee of the lawyer that fights against you. And then the UCC and Celsius all get involved. And then you find yourself on a call with 16 different lawyers. And then Keith Warford comes on the call and says, creates absolute carnage so that he can continue creating confrontation rather than diplomacy and fighting with everybody. And then by the end of it, you realize that you've lost, you know, almost as much from the Chapter 11 process. And they're all having their fat Christmas bonuses, vultures on creditors' money, because they found a way of legally spending client money, even though they were coming after Mashinsky for using the Mashinsky method. And so then we end up with claims against Mashinsky and others. And by the way, the co-founder, Daniel Leone, his wife works for the IDF and was the person that's actually defunding refugees at the moment, Palestinian refugees, by putting out propaganda. She was the VP of loans at Celsius. And the VP of loans at Celsius, and he decided to take his cell token and get a $1-backed loan out of it and took out millions. And so we have claims against all of these people. But Mashinsky's facing 115 years because he's in America. And Daniel Leone has actually created a new tech startup working with the Prime Minister's Office of Israel in order to work with the government there, and he's not facing any time in prison. Ronnie is decided to probably rat out Mijinski, but he's getting sued by the SEC. And I think if you want to find out an update of what actually happened, go to type in YouTube, Coin Bureau Celsius. And one of the ones that was more recent last year was where he covered the whole SEC case, and also go onto Celsius Network, where Cam Cruz actually read out the entire SEC case, the fraud case, and it goes through it all. There was also the Examiner report that was about 800 pages, and Natty is on top of the entire case. So follow Natty. Natty's publishing all the different court documents, but essentially the Mijinski decided that he didn't need a criminal lawyer. He needed a criminal lawyer, if you've watched Breaking Bad. And so he's now working with the same lawyer that's defending SBF, and they may end up in a cell because of the crimes that they committed with a cell token when they tried to sell their cell, and they'll probably end up in the same cell. We'll see. But that will be decided by September, and there's multiple different agencies, the SEC, the Department of Justice, and the regulators also have something to be accountable for, because, by the way, there are FBI investigations into this company long before Mijinski rug pulled his money out and withdrew his funds. And so this is, and by the way, Mijinski came back in court and decided that he had a couple of Israeli shell companies, and one of those, Koala, he tried to get his cell token claim so that he could get his share of our Bitcoin and ETH. But thankfully, Cam Cruz is actually doing his job as part of the litigation oversight committee and is on top of all of this stuff. And David Adler is actually doing his job, despite the fact that Keith Warford probably didn't want him to be there in the first place. And so obviously White and Case got their little part of it as well. But we're giving them 50 million so that they can then sue these different parties. And there are some really decent claims there. And thankfully, Cam Cruz and others are on top of it for the litigation oversight committee, and that should lead to future distributions. In the meantime, Mijinski's facing up to 115 years that will be determined in September for his criminal case. And he's trying to get the case ruled out. And he believes that because these are not securities, then therefore he didn't commit securities fraud. He may have only committed commodities fraud. And he also believes that you should never have believed anything that he told you in the first place, because he wasn't lying. He was being sarcastic. So every lie he told you was puffery. And the definition of puffery is that you were so stupid to believe him. And if anyone was stupid enough to believe the shit that he said, then it was never meant to be believed in the first place. So there's the puffery defense and the securities defense. And then there's a whole bunch of misrepresentation, market manipulation, and Ronnie Colvin Pavan is also on the line as well. But they're hiding out in Israel, using the right to return in order to get away from their crimes.
Yeah, understood your the summary of the entire episode. Thank you very much, Simon. One thing, for example, I had 4 Bitcoin in the Celsius, and my recovery is 1 Bitcoin, and now I am going to get a check. So let's say the check comes after 2 weeks, and the price is 55,000, but the price on January 15th was 43,000 or 45,000. So what will the check be for, like 45 or 55?
Yeah, this process hasn't been told to us yet.
All right. Okay. Thank you for your questions there, Captain DKS. We just got to move on. We have got quite a few people with questions, so thank you. Next person is Sharon, and then Robert.
Good afternoon, Simon.
Hey,
Good
Sharon,
everyone.
perfectly qualified member of the creditor community that would have made a brilliant board member, but wasn't in the right circles and wasn't transacting with the right people.
Oh, thank you for your kind words and supportive words, Simon. Thank you. I just wanted to share a couple of things. One, unfortunately, with governance, They don't have to invite all the board observers to every meeting, but you know, the governance procedures are currently being drawn up, right? So there perhaps might still be some opportunity, and you can designate, if you, depending on what your agreement is, the observer agreement, perhaps you designate proxies to.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that up to if the board want to continue having Keith Warford, then Keith Warford can contact me and create an argument and spend a load of creditors' money. Or they can decide to get a lawyer that wants to actually work on what's right for shareholders. And then I'd be more than happy, because I was really happy to do it in the first place. But at this stage, I've got trust issues. And at this stage, I think I'm better off on the outside, where I've got full freedom of speech and at least I can communicate, until I see a board that actually gives a shit about communicating with their shareholders, because they can right now if they chose.
No, I agree and absolutely understand the trust issues standpoint.
Oh, did we lose Sharon?
I think we lost Sharon.
Oh, sorry. I absolutely understand your concerned around trust issues, but do mind you that perhaps as an outcome of some of those negotiations that you guys participated in, that there could be benefit to the broader community for going the designation route at this point in time. It could be kind of a medium in between, where it frees you from the vocalization you want to do, but yet preserves some semblance of a possible avenue of communication and two-way communication from the shareholders. Because
yeah, sure. And the way that I do it is, if any offers do come my way from here on in, I'll leave it for you, the shareholders, to decide. I'll just go with whatever shareholders want me to do. But yeah, at the moment, yeah, we'll see. But I don't hold your breath. Maybe it was meant to be. Maybe we're all meant to be in this together with freedom of speech, without a gag order.
Yeah. And so on another point, there were some discussions, guys were giving a little guidance to folks that might end up with paper checks in distributions in the settlement of their claims. Just mind you, in the US, it's typically not a year that a check is good for, a commercial check. It defaults to typically 6 months, 180 days, unless there is a valid for written on the check itself, which is usually 90 days. Rarely, but sometimes, commercial checks will, depending on the bank that they're written on, because this is somewhat depending on the bank policies, it'll be valid for a year, but the standard is 180 days. Just mindful for those that are having to navigate, particularly those that might be.
Hey Sharon, what you just said is the reason why we got into Bitcoin in the first place, isn't it? Like, we really got into Bitcoin because we wanted to put some Bitcoin on a platform, and end up with this thing that comes in the post where we need to figure out whether it's expired. And after 180 days, it might appear on our doorstep, and if we don't cash it in time, then it ends up going back. That's exactly why we got into Bitcoin in the first place.
Well, and as you say that, those that are nomadic, that may not have a doorstep or the same doorstep from month to month, it becomes challenging. And just so you know, there perhaps might be some challenges for those people that have have residency in certain jurisdictions that is lined up with their paperwork, but they're traveling, so they're trying to transact. So, for instance, PayPal and the codes don't seem to be working if you are outside of your jurisdiction, but trying to recoup your coupon codes.
Yeah, and I've got no idea what happens to you if the US government has classified you in a country where you need to be punished by the US government and you're not able to receive money in a sanctioned environment. I've got no idea what happens to you there, unfortunately.
Yeah, some challenges with that, but hang in there, Simon.
I'm hanging in. I'm actually feeling a bit more liberated out here. It was a very strange environment for me to. I mean, I haven't worked for anyone for so long. You know, I've got a board at Bank to the Future, and I reached a level where I didn't need to work anymore a long time ago. So it was very, very strange having to, answer to all these different type of agendas. But hell no, is corporate America is not for me. That's why I didn't want to be on the board in the first place. But I really believed I could add value as an observer, and doing it what I believe an observer could do in order to serve the company and serve shareholders.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a bit bumpy. I mean, there is evolution, and through the first 2 years of new board formation. So, this is not unusual to switch out personalities. The whole team formation thing takes a while to get clicking and to uncover everyone's agendas. And when there's a variety of interests, like you're a sizable shareholder now, and I've come to know probably the equivalent size of folks collectively of folks that have been caught in this situation also. That's going to be a challenge to the governance going forward, and as this all shakes through the first year. So more to watch. It's going to be interesting. Everybody take notes.
All right, we'll do the next speaker. Sharon, thank you for your service to creditors. I know that you tried to add as much as you could to the process, and you spent a lot of time helping people in their moments of need. So really, really appreciate everything you've done.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, before we bring up Robert, who's been waiting patiently alongside everyone else, I'm just going to read a question that's come through in a DM, and then quickly bring back up. Who did we have?
And by the way, if any board member,
Yeah.
if anyone from Ionic Digital, if anyone from the UCC, if anyone from White and Case would like to, communicate with people and share whether you have a completely different perspective on what happens, then you are more than welcome to come up. We believe in freedom of speech and two sides here.
And how would we 100% know that they represent Ionic?
I know everyone who's everyone in this process.
All right, cool. Good answer. Yeah, so I'll just read that question out, quickly bring back up Natty, who wanted to just respond because you mentioned Natty there, and then we'll bring up Robert. So thanks for that. The question was, can you please ask Simon if another board observer or member can be appointed that's from the creditor body, NIT and UCC members?
My answer is that there will be a corporate governance process written as one of the early agendas for the board. And the board could decide whether they want a third board observer or whether they want to leave it as two. That's completely up to the board at this stage. And all I would do is ask the board to just do what you think is right, not what Keith Warford thinks is right. And also get somebody that has had a bit more of a track record of being somewhat sensitive to their shareholders, rather than treating victims as criminals like Keith Warford always did.
Okay, quick one from yourself, Natty, and then I'll bring up Robert.
Yeah, quickly, I'll make a tweet to remind everybody about the timeline of the schedule of the US DOJ criminal case versus Mashinsky. And we'll tag Elsius Network, and Inner City Press will do the live coverage when this will happen. So there will be pre-trial conference in March and in July this year. And in the end, the date is settled in September 2024 for the final trial. So if anybody is looking for justice, there is a trial which is incoming. Thank you.
Thanks, Natty. Yeah, everybody should follow Natty. He's given real-time updates on the case, and he's always on top of the documents. I often see them from Natty before I see them from anyone else. So really appreciate all the work you've done for creditors and all the due diligence and all the research and participating in all these spaces. Thank you.
The Bitcoin battalion never sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Nati. And over to Robert. Thank you for waiting patiently.
My pleasure. Thank you for bringing me up. I love you, Simon, for all you do. I love you, Assad, for the superb way you manage these spaces. I love you, Tony, for your constant, uncensored commentary and your patience in staying on the Telegram site so much. I thank you, Sharon and Nati, and all the others who've been following this for the semi-engaged people like me. Okay, so I got my notice from Ionic during the meeting. I compared it to my last Celsius balance, and so the microscopic number of shares that I got was less than half of the 57% of the Celsius balance I looked at a couple weeks ago. And now my Celsius balance has gone up by another 33%, showing in the Celsius app, which is my portfolio balance, which is all cash. I don't have any coins. I toggled to equity because of my fractured relationship with PayPal and because Coinbase wasn't in the picture then. And so I'm trying to figure out these numbers. I mean,
yeah, let me help you out. So firstly, I'll describe it, but the investment banking team at Bank to the Future took all of the formulas, all of the numbers, analyzed them all, created like slide decks. They're all in the emergency broadcast webinars that we've done. I think it
oh,
was
look at that. I'm a
emergency
little bit
broadcast
behind.
webinar 4 was where we went through distribution calculations. Emergency broadcast 5 was where we did all of the company stuff. Number 6 is where we calculated all the holdbacks. Number 7 is when we audited all the holdbacks so you can see future distributions. And then number 8 was meant to be today, but I decided that we'd go on a space given the current circumstance because the webinars can only host 200 people. But we put all the recordings up there so you can get those. But so the way that the equity is calculated is on the 13th of July, they had a snapshot of coin prices, and those coin prices are multiplied by all the coins that you had in your account, and that gives you a dollar value claim. At that moment, your coins disappeared. You don't have coins, you don't have Solana, you don't have Litecoin, you don't have Bitcoin, you don't have ETH. You have a claim of dollars. And then on that dollar claim, we went through a year and a half. Bitcoin went up, and so we managed to increase the dollar recovery, but Majinsky lost a bunch of crypto, and that doesn't change. And then they spent a bunch of crypto, and that doesn't change. And so basically, you then take that claim and you multiply it by approximately 14% from memory. Excuse me if I'm not getting that right. And then you divide it by $20 per share, and that will tell you how many shares you have. But if I got the formula just completely wrong or it's hard to understand, we've got a slide where the team at Bank to the Future walk through exactly how to audit that transaction. Now, on the whole toggle thing, let me give you the history. So there was a plan offered by Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit overpromised and underdelivered. And then it had to, the plan that we originally voted upon was a two-tiered plan. It was a reorganization that could pivot down to an orderly wind down. And that orderly wind down meant that the toggle feature where you said, I want to go full equity, disappears. And so everyone receives some Bitcoin, some ETH, and some equity, and we're all working to the same percentages. Some kind of different case, like we had a loan, or we were in custody, or we were in convenience class, or anything like that. So yeah, I don't want to go through the exact numbers, but that's where you can find those resources, and hopefully that will give you what you need.
Okay, so I never registered my Coinbase address or account because I thought I was getting all equity.
Do you live in America?
Yes.
Yeah, you're not using Coinbase.
Well, I can't use PayPal. I have a very fractured relationship with PayPal, so I'm going to get a check.
Yeah, so you're going to get a check.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
But if you received an email from PayPal, put your code in. But if you didn't receive an email from PayPal, then yeah, Rob, if you did receive an email from PayPal, put your code in and you'll get some Bitcoin. put your
Oh,
code
they'll
in,
just
another
keep it
code
with
in,
all
and you'll
the
get
other
some ETH.
crypto they're sitting on for years.
What's that? Sorry.
I have a fractured relationship with PayPal. They've been sitting on some crypto of mine for years.
So
And
it might still be in there, depending on your relationship. But if the relationship was so bad that they marked you as a customer they couldn't distribute to, then you'll be getting Stretto in dollars and expect an email from Stretto in the not too distant future.
okay, thank you. Now, I fully support your decision to stay on the outside. When can shareholders vote their shares? Do we have any idea? Sharon may have some insight on that. So you could actually do something with your community to influence the board.
Yeah, they actually really went to town on this one. And so they put some clauses in there where you can't have a shareholder meeting until the first full year had occurred. And then when you do that, it was from 2024. So by the time we can actually have a shareholder meeting that we can participate in, they did it where it's like 3 years out. And then they gave different board members basically contracts where they can't be fired unless it's for gross negligence. And certain tiers of directors got 3-year lock-in, 2-year lock-in, and 1-year lock-in. And so there's a possibility that they structured this where they don't have to do diddly squat for like 2 to 3 years. And so what I'd appreciate from board observers would be to actually look at those policies that were set up. But the problem is it was done in the certificate of incorporation, which cannot be changed. And then there were certain shares that the guys at Hut 8 will have, which are called B shares. And for as long as those B shares are designed so that we're locked into their contract, unless they don't IPO. So there was a hell of a lot of stuff. We covered all this in the Celsius Recovery Solution in the governance module, where we went through all of this stuff. Not legal advice, not financial advice, not tax advice.
Okay, thank you, Simon, for bringing me up to date. I will fully support whatever you come up with for American shareholders with my microscopic number of shares. Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. But if I'm on the outside, then my job will be to ensure that we use our resources to make sure that whenever we're doing updates, shareholders at least kind of understand these things so that they can then take them to their lawyers and stuff and decide what to do. I want to do this for one reason and one reason only: to increase shareholder value. So if I'm on the outside, I'd look to hold accountable, not to be a pain, not to be a nuisance, but with the goal that they change things in order to be more reflective of the reality of the situation that we all found ourselves in. And if I'm on the inside, I'll continue to do what I was already doing, which was introducing my contacts, introducing ideas, and introducing things that I thought could have made this a really valuable company. But it's up to the board to decide. I'm not sure if Keith Warford, as counsel, wanted that type of input.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I believe Robert's gone now. So we'll bring up, there's an infinity logo with the infinity. Then we'll bring up Crypto Girl Andre, and then Marco. So let's go with infinity. If you can hear us, just unmute yourself, please. Okay, let's move over to Crypto Girl.
Hi there, Simon. Hi there, everybody. First of all, Simon, I'm just so shocked at what you said about Keith Wooford. I could hear the anger and the disappointment in your voice. And I just feel that whatever he's done to you, he's actually done it to all of us, and we should all be equally angry and get something done about this. My questions are about the distribution on PayPal, because I went to go through the process. I've only received my ETH code, but when I went to go through the process, it started saying agree to these certain conditions and click. And I read in one of the columns that there was going to be a 1.5% withdrawal fee, which was a shock because we were all told there would be no withdrawal fee. So I'm just wondering if anybody has actually managed to withdraw a large amount and not incurred a fee, or whether they have incurred a fee. Has anybody in this space had that experience yet?
Yeah, so what I'd like everyone to do is on the bottom right is the purple pill. If you know what your fee is to hand, and whether you think it was a reasonable fee or an unreasonable fee, let us know. And if you could tag Crypto Girl into it as well, then everyone can share their experiences and people can read the comments underneath this channel as well.
Thank you. And then the other thing was that when you fill in their form to get a higher withdrawal, they ask you to state your income. They ask you to state your net worth. If you want to withdraw to your own private wallet, they want you to send $2 of ETH and Bitcoin from that wallet to them for verification. But the thing is that the sending address will not be the same as the one that you're going to receive your crypto to. So what?
Yeah, I mean, this is new regulation. So essentially, source of funds, source of wealth, that's very standard. Any virtual asset service provider, they're a regulated EMI, money service provider. So you'd expect they need to know. And, obviously this money came in from Celsius. And hopefully they don't go a layer deeper of how did you get the money in Celsius. But in history, like when I purchased my house with Bitcoin, took me 9 months because I had to go back to Bitcoin I was mining in like 2013 and explain the whole thing. And then I had to end up actually getting a forensic investigator to allow the transaction to go through because the person that was buying my house wouldn't accept Bitcoin. And I wind him up every single year because if he did accept from that, the house that I would have purchased in Bitcoin terms today, if he kept it, would have been over $350 million. So I like to wind him up about that, but that's a little tangent.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I always wind him up. I tell him what it would be worth if he had taken the Bitcoin and not put us through that hell. But yeah, that's the source of funds, source of wealth. And then there's a new rule called travel rule. And travel rule means that they need to understand the destination. And guess what? They're probably bodging it up where you might have a Trezor wallet that then has a structure where it creates a new wallet address every time. But in the end, if you want a smooth transition, they want to see the same wallet that you can then verify a transaction from. And you may think this is completely illogical, but they're trying to comply with a new regulation called the travel rule, where they need to make sure that if the government contacts them and you commit crime, then they could trace it back to the original wallet and connect it to your identity. That's what all these institutions have to do by law, and there's no way around it.
Okay, interesting. And then the last thing is, I don't know how we're all going to manage without these spaces to track what's going on with the mining company and to know the optimum time to maybe cash in our shares or to just keep abreast of it. Would you consider continuing these spaces just for people who have mining co stock, not all your other investors, just so that information can be shared?
I'm sure the community will, but I've got to. So anyone that's working with Bank to the Future, I do have to focus on customers. I gave a lot to this process, and my board and my shareholders want me to focus on customers. I think my duty has been fulfilled, and so I created that membership portal for everybody if they, to put some educational content in. But those that want to have their recovery through Bank to the Future, then there's an application page called simondixon.com/club. And if you apply to work with us, then all of my updates are going to be done with those that are staking with us. The commitment is that you stake your ETH with Bank to the Future with a minimum of 1 year lock-in with our registered virtual asset service provider, and you agree to take delivery of your shares through our regulated broker that's able to work with retail non-US investors. So that's what I'll be doing, but I'm sure the community is going to have lots of stuff, but I've really got to fulfill my duties and obligations to our customers and Bank to the Future. They have been pushing me to get back to the board and that's a situation. That's just a reality of my commitment to my shareholders.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. You really have gone above and beyond for all of us Celsius creditors, and we're all extremely grateful. I mean, I am a Brit with a British passport. I just don't reside there. Do you think there's a way I could come on board
Bank
with
to the
Bank
Future can't. Yeah, we can't work with anyone that resides in the US or is a US taxpayer. We don't have the licenses to do it. Yeah, we were like when we were in the bidding process, we were going to use Securitize, and we had a US broker dealer, but then all the SEC cases came through, and so you know we can't work with US. We'd love to, but it's just not practical with the current regulatory environment in the US.
Okay, thank you, Crypto Girl. Sharon's back on. I believe Sharon's got
so how will you communicate the things that you observe?
That will be in the membership portal, which will be available for those that are working with Bank to the Future.
All right, thank you, Crypto Girl.
Can I just ask one thing? Does that mean the rest of us who are in the US will just be in the dark? We won't be receiving any of this feedback?
No, there's going to be a public reporting company. And as the Bitcoin industry grows, there's going to be research analysts that are going to be. So now we've got Bitcoin ETFs. You'd expect this to be. So there's like a guy called Sebastian when I joined, like Matt, the CEO of Ionic, on a mining call. There's going to be a lot of community members that are going to be analyzing this stuff, putting their research out there, and stuff like that. But everything that you do need to know, I literally put everything in. My analysis of every document, every part of this process was in simondixon.com/recovery. And I broke it down into modules. If you got a loan, if you got clawback exposure, if you got crypto distributions, if you got equity, governance, I broke it all down. So everything's there. And then they will have to report quarterly updates. And then at Bank to the Future, I'm sure all of us that pull together to take actions, it will spill out into Twitter for other people that want to participate in anything that we may be doing. Don't quite know yet. It's a new journey.
Yeah, so what Simon's referring to is the Celsius Recovery Solution membership portal. That you can register for that by going to simondixon.com/recovery.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you're non-US and want to work with Bank to the Future, it's simondixon.com/club.
All right, thank you very much, Crypto Girl. We do have a lot of people still waiting to ask questions. How are we doing for time, Simon?
I wanted to close it at 2 hours because when these go on for too long and we put the recording up, people are scared to actually see them. But maybe
it is. It's bang on 2 hours now. It's 8 o'clock here in the UK.
Yeah. How many people do we have with their hands up?
Well, Sharon's back on, and we've got Jimmy Z. But I do have the people in order that we could have next, which would be Marco V, Andrew, and Jimmy. And then we've got David, Eric Answer, and Jimmy Z.
Okay, should we do all of those? And I'll try and give shorter answers.
All right, brilliant. Sharon, you're back on. Quick question.
Yeah, I really just wanted to respond to Crypto Girl. And first, really good to hear that you're wanting to do your own research, because that's a lesson that we learned here, right? So in regards to the Iconic Digital going forward and the mining space in general, there are a number of groups out there. There are a number of spaces out there regularly. So I encourage you, I'm not going to show one in particular, but there are some really good ones. And, just drop into those from time to time. It is a good way to kind of keep your pulse on what's going on. With this particular, what's currently private company that perhaps will become public, and how it stacks up against the other public equities out there in the space. I'd really encourage you to do that. For those that are in the U.S. and don't have access to what Simon's able to offer everyone else globally, that's really all I was going to say. Congratulations. We've all learned that lesson. Do your own research. Take care.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. I believe Natty's got a quick one, so I've just brought Natty back on. Natty?
No, I'm going to pin a tweet regarding the Mashinsky trial, so everybody can save it and go to the link. And I'm going to pin a tweet for the Sebastian mining guy, who is and a community who is following, and will give update about the if this new call Ionic Digital gets listed on the Nasdaq. As Simon said, don't expect Simon to do follow-up for you, or you go to his portal and Bank to the Future, more power to him, that's fine. But if it gets listed, it will be a public company. And there is a lot of Bitcoin mining analysts who will analyze the debt, if it is a bullshit company or not, to make up your opinion. Do I wait the bull run to dump it? Whatever. So that's it. There is other source. I'm going to pin a tweet with some guy from the mining space, so you know where to follow. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Natty.
All right. So we'll
also,
bring
I was going to give a webinar tonight. That was going to be the subject of tonight. That I was going to go. We, our team that had done a whole analysis on comparisons and the current valuation and where it is and stuff, all based upon public information, as we said. But we'll probably put that off till next week. So if anyone wants to attend that, we'll do it. And anyone from anywhere can have a free membership at simondixon.com/recovery. That's for whether we can work with you or not. So we're going to be doing that next week.
Okay, so Marco V up next, then Andrew, then we have Jimmy, David, then Jimmy Z, then Eric Answer. That's the order. So Marco V, you're next.
Yeah, appreciate taking the call. So the original distribution appeared there was about $1 billion missing, and your team dug into it, Simon, and found that a big chunk of that was holdbacks. When can we anticipate that distribution? Is there any specifics around that? And is that being held in crypto? So it's being subject to the appreciation that we're seeing in the broader market?
That's a really good question, and I'd like that information. I think we'll try and figure that one out and cover it in one of the webinars, but I don't have the answer to hand of whether it's in dollars, Bitcoin, or ETH. There's always been it's always been so hard for our team to get the coin report and then the financials, and then you got the consolidated financials. It was always just a mission, to put it together into something coherent. Obviously Keith did as much work as he could, and Natty did it, and we did as much work. But the way that the finances were presented throughout this whole thing was always a mission to reverse engineer coin for coin versus dollar for dollar. So yeah,
Okay.
not too sure on that. David from our team got the missing down to 72 million. And then in terms of when the distribution will happen, I think it's going to take a bit of time because they've got to go through all the legal battles, and I haven't stayed up to pulse with what's happening with the clawback guys, but that's obviously Keith Woolford's pet project.
Okay, but would the distribution look the same as what we just experienced with the initial distributions?
No, this will be far and away. I think David's going to correct me if I get it wrong, but I think we calculated a low of 2 to 4% and a high of 7%. But I can't remember the exact figures. I'd have to go back to the webinar, but David presented it all right down of all the expectations on each line of how much exactly it would be crypto for crypto and dollar for dollar.
Right. Sorry, I meant the delivery method.
Oh, the delivery date?
No, the delivery method. Would it be via email?
I reckon the reason they wanted these distribution partners is so we can do the same again.
Got it. Okay.
I'll lobby for that if that's not the plan. But Chris Ferraro is the plan administrator for the next year, and my guess is that he'll do the same as what we've done here.
Okay.
And I think the litigation oversight committee, maybe Cam might be able to give some updates, or Adler when they're ready for that. I reckon they're going to try and use the same type of payment infrastructure, but these are all to be determined, or I don't know yet.
Okay. And then the other quick one I had is Cam Cruz still on the litigation committee, or did they? I thought I saw
Cam
some
the
tweet where he
Man
was.
Cruz is still there, and if he ever ends up leaving that, I think it would be a massive disservice to creditors, and we should all have an uprising and a revolution against the Litigation Oversight Committee if White and Case ever figured out a way of not holding themselves accountable to Cam Cruz after all the work he's done.
Okay,
And,
good.
Yeah.
Because I thought I saw something where his name was striked out on some particular tweet, but good to hear that he's still in the mix. The last easy one I have is what is our cost basis on these Ionic shares? Is it zero, or I mean, what is it?
Cost basis.
I
think it comes in at 740 million. So the current valuation, which is 225 million cash.
No, I'm sorry. If we were to sell on the first day,
you're gonna. That would be different. So we've been working on non-US tax, and tax has a whole US different side. I don't want to answer that one. I think Aaron Bennett did a good video with an interview with someone on the tax side for US. There was 16 pages on tax in the disclosure statement.
Okay.
And then on the non-US side, we've basically gone through all of the different rulings in the court case, and we built a software which integrates with Bank to the Future and Recap, so that it can figure out your situation based upon all the different rulings and all the data that we can pull through from the bankruptcy, from Celsius, from Coinbase, and from Bank to the Future.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Thank you, sir. That's all I got.
Cheers.
Thank you, Marco V. Next up is Andre.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Andre.
Yeah, I'm from Thailand, and in the latest fact from Celsius, Thailand is in the countries for Coinbase distribution, but I just cannot open account here because it says countries not supported. So I guess I will get a fiat check then.
Yeah, sounds about right. If you can't open an account with Coinbase and you don't have one, they don't support Thailand.
It's in the list, in fact, but I cannot open. I contacted Celsius support with Strata, but they didn't say anything special yet, just standard response.
Okay. If anyone's managed to successfully receive a distribution through Coinbase from Thailand, can you please put your experience, hit the purple pill, put a comment in there so that people can read it after listening to the recording, and tag the gentleman that just came up as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And one more question about fiat check. For make it clear, for fiat check distribution, you think value will be tied to fiat, not for BTC and Ether. But like,
yeah, I don't have the answer to that, and they haven't provided the answer yet. But as soon as they provide it, we'll post some updates.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is about Ionic shares. You have a recovery Bank to the Future portal, and you said we can transfer our shares there later. It will be possible when they will be tradable, because when we just get it, it's not movable and tradable, right?
Yeah, so there's going to be a bit of a process. So initially, it won't be tradable. Then it will go on NASDAQ, and then we're a regulated broker, so we're able to take delivery of those shares, unless Keith Warford tries to make it his mission that we can't work with our customers. But assuming that everything's okay there, which I don't think legally that's possible because it's your shares, then you'll be able to receive them through, and then we've already done like this with Coinbase when they went public, because our investors invested in the private shares and they went public. We did it with Robinhood, and we did it with Exodus. Those were all like the three. And we've got Circle coming up, Ripple Labs coming up, Kraken coming up, and so we can also do Ionic Digital. So yeah, you basically enter a code for our broker, and then the transfer agent has to take delivery, and then you can place a sell order. The good thing is that because we've got a virtual asset service provider and a regulated broker, you can actually go from shares and then convert them to ETH and stake the ETH, or you can go to stable coins and withdraw the stables, or you can go from shares to Bitcoin and then withdraw them to cold storage. So we've got that complete flow from public share to virtual asset service provider. That should be ready soon.
Okay, Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre. Just a quick, there was a message that I just read. It appears that Joe Lear was listening in, but he's left the spaces. It would have been good for Joe to have joined us, as he was he's an observer as well. So we missed that boat. All right.
Was he in the queue?
He was somewhere in the audience, just listening.
Right, yeah. Joe might be, I don't know. It's up to Joe to say his position. So he might be under a gag order, but my understanding is that all observers were in yesterday's board meeting, and I was the only one that was uninvited.
All right, let's bring up David, and then we'll bring up Jimmy, followed by Jimmy Z, then Eric Answer. So David, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. So I received first of all, thanks a lot, Simon and Azad and everybody who's worked a lot to give us feedback on all this case. So I received my ETH and Bitcoin via Coinbase today, and it seems that there is a gap. I didn't have like 100%. It was like 99 point something. So I would like to know: is there anyone? I think it was not these questions actually. Is there anyone who will audit the distribution percentage versus the 57.9%?
No one's going to do it for you, but we've given the formulas for everyone to be able to do it themselves. And then those are in the emergency broadcast 4 or 5 in simondixon.com/recovery.
Okay. All right. And then my second question is regarding the illiquid assets and litigation. Who will be following that and update us about this?
Yeah.
Can we take that as your final question, and then we'll move on to the next speakers? Thank you.
It's my final question.
Yeah. So the illiquid assets are going to be managed by BRICS, and I'm not sure how they plan on doing communications and updates. I managed to maintain a relationship with BRICS, but I'll, at some point we'll try and understand that. And we've got, for example, our customers, they want all of their BRIC recoveries to be converted into either Bitcoin and ETH staking as soon as they come in. So we're creating a bit of a flow where it can go straight through that. But my guess is it's probably going to be done through Coinbase and PayPal as they come in. They have oversight from the Litigation Oversight Committee, which is 7 people that were selected, which includes David Adler and Cam Cruz and some White and Case people. And the Liquid Assets Litigation Oversight Committee is that's going to be done by the Litigation Oversight Committee, and then there's one particular person, I forget his name, he's doing it for both BlockFi and us in terms of litigation, but White and Case are managing that process. White and Case are also counsel to the board, and White and Case's customers are also the board members. And those, will lead to certain distributions. I'd expect wait a year. I don't think anything's going to come for at least a year. And then maybe in 2025, we receive a distribution, and then we can use that to buy some Bitcoin or ETH or see how the shares are going and come up with a strategy. Okay, next question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, we're going to go with Jimmy, and then Jimmy Z, And then the last one, Eric Answer. So Jimmy, you're up.
Hey, Simon, I just wanted to say thank you for all you do. I just want to know how soon I will be able to sell the stocks. Do you know? I don't know if you covered that or not.
It's actually going to be pretty difficult because even like with ETFs right now, you've got to wait for the broker to support it. So even with Coinbase, it took like 9 months. So expect that to not be a smooth process. But you got to wait for liquidity to pick up. You got to wait for a bunch of people that just wake up one day and say, "Holy shit, I got shares. How do I take delivery of those?" They're going to be asking, "Can I airdrop them to my MetaMask?" And they're going to say, "No, you need an account with a broker." But the process from here is that the Form 10 has been submitted to the SEC. If the Form 10 has a 60-day comment period, I reckon we're like 10 days into that already. So maybe there's another 50 days. The SEC will be doing a back and forth with the company. And after 60 days, they are authorized in order to list on NASDAQ. And then I think like 20 days after the 60-day period, all of the communication between Ionic and the SEC will be published and available as public information. But I anticipate that to be a smooth process. We'll see. But it's all done through the transfer agent Odyssey, and then everyone will be able to log into their Odyssey account and select which broker they want to receive it. And all of your brokers will have a different process for taking delivery of a newly listed NASDAQ shares. They may say if the liquidity is too low, it's going to take a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. For me, I'm not going to be selling my shares because I think that's what Keith Warford wanted me to do, so that his buddies could buy them on the cheap. Allegedly, just a speculation. There's no necessarily truth to that matter.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Was that your question?
No, that was all. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy Z, you're up next.
Hey, thanks. If this was covered earlier, I apologize, but can anyone confirm as far as with the withdrawal limits on PayPal? I know currently they're 10K a week, and you can fill out that crypto limits form that you can download, fill out, and email to PayPal. I called them today and actually got someone on the phone and asked, hey, can you verify that you got the email with my form to increase my limits? And they said, yeah, we've got it. And then they said it would take about a week to determine if you're approved. Can anyone confirm, did Celsius or the UCC or whoever, when they made this deal with PayPal, is it a guarantee that they will increase your limits and let you pull everything off, or just that PayPal will let us ask them to increase our limits, and that's as far as the UCC went with it?
Yeah, another company can never guarantee the compliance of someone else's company. So you wouldn't expect them to be able to guarantee it. If PayPal are not willing to do it, that's PayPal's policy. And if they consider it not compliant based upon the information you present to them, then they legally have to follow those processes. So there's no real ways around that. You can't Celsius wouldn't be able to guarantee it.
So we're just at the mercy of PayPal, whether they want to let us pull our crypto out at this point.
Yeah, they call it the PayPal mafia for a reason. But yeah, if anyone has successfully withdrawn a significant sum after completing a form that allowed them to withdraw more than $10,000, put it in the purple pill and tag Jimmy Z into that, and my love to Mary as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And the final speaker is Eric Answer.
Hey, everyone. We're not really talking about the most important thing, Simon, and that is, did your wife get you a Valentine's Day present, or was that box of paper dump the only thing you received?
That's the important stuff. Yes, I got my Valentine's Day present, and she thought it was that, and then it turned out to be a box full of paper from Celsius. So I had my moment when I was recording it, and I thought it was so funny that I posted that on YouTube, and you can get on Twitter, and you can see the video posted to the above. Have you got any final FUs, New York comedy? Because you're the final person, Eric, and
Well,
What have you got for us?
I mean, absolutely. To fuck you to clawback Keith. I mean, that guy's a piece of complete fucking shit. And I thought Tony was a little bit hard on him at first, but I fucking hate lawyers, and this is just because I've dealt with the the law process at Southern District Court of New York, and I've dealt with lawyers from the industry that I'm in for my entire life, and I just know how the game is played on quite frankly on both sides. Plaintiff, defendant, it doesn't fucking matter. All the lawyers are in it together. They've all gone to school with each other. They all look out for each other. They don't ever want to really shake the feather. They don't fuck them. Fuck all the lawyers and fuck clawback Keith. But I did, and honestly, I laughed obviously at the Valentine's Day thing that you did, but it was really frustrating for me to see you have to go through that. I'm sure there are people who probably feel, oh, Simon's rich. Who cares? I lost $10,000, $5,000, and I don't look at it that way. I think that you've worked for your money, your crypto, your entire life, whether you are top 1% or low, or not the top 1%, it doesn't matter. You're definitely one of the creditors who got fucked the most in this process, and what they did to you is disgusting. I guess what I really wanted to say beyond the tongue-in-cheek joke was, do you think that perhaps this is obviously a very crypto degenerates in general, or crypto people in general, I don't want to call us degenerates, are an engaged community to begin with, right? And obviously we saw what happened with like Wall Street bets, and it's been alluded to on this call by several of the other intelligent creditors. Do you think that it's because of this engaged community, it's because of how engaged and intelligent you are, and quite frankly, we all are in this niche space and niche industry, mining, crypto, staking, and all the vernacular that we have to educate the lawyers on for the most part. Do you think that they were just afraid of you being, maybe not even afraid, but we're going to have a public stock, right? Probably. So if the stock is public and you're talking to us and you have our ear, and for most of us, you have our trust and certainly our respect, a lot of us are going to move in a direction that you may suggest, or just in the way that you speak, we may move in what you recommend, or whatever. We'll take your information that you give us the most, and we'll make our decisions based on that. And maybe that's what they're afraid of, because you have the opportunity, and I do say you have the opportunity to kind of move the stock, the price of the stock, if it's really a creditor-owned company. And I've mentioned this to you in the past, and you and I have had discussion. I've never seen a public company go from bankruptcy to where it's 100% quote unquote owned by the shareholders. Maybe there are companies out there, I don't know, certainly not in crypto. Obviously, that's how they're going to build their future clients on even more money. But I digress. The point is that not to say you can control us, but the information that you provide, we trust and we respect. So you come out of one of those meetings, and even if it's something that you could talk about, what you say to this engaged community is going to move the stock price the way that, I don't know, the inverse Jim Cramer trade could work. The way that people, when the pundits talk on CNBC, you're a pundit in this scenario. I'm talking in tangents here, but do you think that they're just afraid of the power that you have over the community, and they wanted you out of that situation because they're going to have a public stock? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really great place to close this off on. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. So, I can empathize with the thought of that one way of handling this bankruptcy was to say nothing that could get you in trouble and don't communicate with creditors and just do everything through the court dockets, knowing that the vast majority of creditors just don't have the time, inclination, or even, resources to be able to understand half the stuff. And so I can empathize with somebody that says, my lawyers will often tell me, you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But there's a point at which a board has to say, fuck it, what's right to be done, and how do we do it compliantly? And that's what I think the board should do. What's the right thing to do, and how do we do it compliantly? And the right thing to do is recognize that we live in a world of information, and boards hiding information is a very old world. And yes, we have to comply with all the requirements. And so you need skilled people that understand and come from the fabric of the opposite of Majinsky, of under promising, rather than over promising. And culturally, you need people that do that, where they set goals and they add another year so that people aren't disappointed. And that's what I've always tried to do. that and often you get it wrong because there's so many things that can go wrong in our industry and sector. And so you need skilled people on the board that can handle those communications and compliance and the technological reality that actually the AI, Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain, Twitter Spaces, like we are moving into an incredibly disruptive world where deep fakes can be used in order to impersonate me, in order to say something that pump and dump the stock. Look what happened to Hut 8. A short seller comes along, 50% in the share price based upon a report and saying things about Asher and various other people. And so that's the world we live in today. It's absolute chaos, it's absolute carnage. And you can either do what Keith Walford does and say, we'll pretend that this world doesn't exist anymore and we won't communicate. And you can have 650,000 people that are resentful that want to sell their shares. Or you can lean in and embrace the world that we live in today. And if the board wants to lean in and embrace the world that we live in today, then I think, follow some of the interesting things that Hut 8 have actually done. They have been communicating in ClearSpark. Now, their communications may not be exactly what shareholders want, but this is the cold, hard reality. And you just got to understand your compliance. You've got to understand not to oversell. You've got to understand, you've got to be a skilled operator to do it in the game that we live in today. And you've got to utilize your shareholders for the skills that they actually have. There were a bunch of people, and you said it. The collective intelligence of the Celsius creditor community with some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen, combined with pushback from some of the most intelligent people that I've met, collectively with all of their experience, created our understanding of where we are today. And it was the fact that we were able to communicate on Twitter Spaces that was completely different to BlockFi. Azad is a creditor in BlockFi. He hasn't got the first clue what's going on because there's no community to collectively put that together. And so, that's the world that we live in today. That is the future of stock markets. That is the future of currencies. You're going to choose in the future your central bank digital currency based upon your ideological alignment around how much Bitcoin backing that currency has or how much freedom they allow it to have. So if your CBDC gives you no freedom and a social credit score and no Bitcoin backing, you're going to go interoperably into another central bank digital currency created by another country. And eventually, humans are just going to say, hey, all of these currencies are backed by war and we're blowing each other up and committing genocides. Fuck those humans. Let's back this by something better. And AI is going to come along and develop all these different things. Imagine the impact that that's going to have on your stock price. Imagine where we are going in this world today. There's only one way to handle this shit. Lean in, embrace, and the likes of White and Case, I think they treated this as the old world rather than the new world. And there was consequences for that. And so we had to take up the banner. And I hope that the new board is able to recognize what an incredible opportunity it is to actually have a company that's 100% owned by shareholders that actually give a shit, that are going to be able to put their input. And if they can just figure out how to harness that rather than work against it, then maybe we might just create a company that actually could drive some kind of recovery for people, no matter how shit the starting point is. And that's really the vision of a board. And the board needs to express that vision. They need to enroll people into that vision, and they need to do it in compliance with the regulations that are around us. And guess what? You had a bunch of people that really wanted to participate in that process, and because of bad communications, you ended up just with a bunch of people that on day one may want to sell their stock. And then you ended up deciding how you could create a structure where you get rid of the very victims that you were here to try and protect in the first place, and protect the very same predatory types of moves that will allow someone to snap it up and do a predatory thing. So as shareholders, I think we should be active shareholders. And by active shareholders, anyone that's worked in investment banking, they know what that means. We should be active because this is the only company that's 100% owned by the victims that were put through this. And damn, it's going to be an interesting experiment, whether it ends up in nothing or not. I want to continue sharing that journey. And I think that's a brilliant place to close this off. And if you know that I'm getting sued and I get a letter from Keith Warford and team, you know, I'll let you know exactly what happens there, because there's a guy called Craig Wright that did that to a guy called Peter McCormack, and that's the world that some people live in. I don't live in that world. I come from a world of creating value, not suing each other. And you know what? Chapter 11 was the worst fucking process I've ever been involved in, because there was no creativity, and there was just a bunch of lawyers running the show that were out there to just try and protect themselves and protect their own self-interest after we all got screwed by a lying, stealing, and cheating Majinsky, that hopefully we all get to see what happens and what comes from that. And everybody should rebuild, and everybody should figure out what they're going to do from here. And the cold hard reality is that you got a great lesson in how to not do things in the future. Use it, protect yourself, and protect others as well. So that's going to do it.
Wait, you know what, Simon? I just wanted to add one from a from a layman's perspective, right? First of all, I think you explained it really well, but I know that there's people from different countries and different languages that sometimes the vernacular maybe they get lost in. Quite frankly, even myself sometimes. But in layman's perspectives, what you're essentially saying is, even if what my thought process is in regard to why they may be doing this and the ramifications that come with it, fuck it. It is what it is. It's kind of like the new way of doing things. And if this has any type of element or essence of Wall Street bets, where it's the community owns this company and can control the price, then it is what it is, and they just have to kind of just deal with it, and that's it, right? I mean, like, because you're extremely intelligent, but you're not the smart. I mean, you're not the only smart creditor in this process. So a lot of us are, right?
Exactly.
So,
The solution came from the collective intelligence of all of us cooperating and just going crazy at each other and pushing back and realizing who had the best ideas. And sometimes this person had really good ideas over here and really bad ideas over here. And this person was really good at executing, and this person was just full of shit. This person was an outright scammer, and this person was just trying to, you know, they were getting paid by somebody in order to protect their reputation. This guy said a load of shit that never came true and was always wrong, and is now being targeted by a hacker that's actually going to be doxing them. You know, all of this shit collectively comes together into the craziness of this process. And the old world was closed, selective, and controlling, but the new world is open, random, and supportive. And if you don't adjust to that, I don't think these are the companies that are going to be surviving into the future, because this is a damn crazy world that we live in. So embrace it. Thanks, everybody. Azad, appreciate you putting on this space. And as I said, a couple of things. If you want to get all of the resources that I recorded, we did put the time and effort into it, and there's all a collective knowledge at simondixon.com/recovery. That's available to anybody that wants to log in. And then if anyone is non-US and wants to work with myself and Bank to the Future over the years ahead to maximize the recovery, then there's an application page on simondixon.com/club. Basically, I just asked the team to build all the technology. When I thought we were in the bidding process, we started building it. And so we're using that for anyone that wants to take this journey and make sure this shit doesn't happen to them again. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.